I'd like to call this October 17th, 2013 Cookeville City Council meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Anderson.
Present.
Councilman Woodford.
Present.
Mayor Swallows.
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps.
Here.
Councilman Albright. Here. All present.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. Any changes, subtractions, additions from the agenda?
No change.
All right. Consider approval of agenda as presented. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
5 yes votes. Motion carries.
Consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on October 3rd, 2013. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
5 yes votes. Motion carries.
All right, on to the consent agenda. Item 3, consider awarding bid for refuse and cardboard containers from the Public Works Department. Item 4, consider awarding bid for uniforms from Water Quality Control and Leisure Services Department. And item 5, consider awarding bids for regulators, switchgear, transformer, and installing tile floor from the Electric Department. So a motion for approval on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? None? All vote.
5 yes votes. Motion carries.
All right. On to new business. Item 6, consider resolution 131008 authorizing the participation in the TML Risk Management Pool Drivers Grant Loss Control Matching Grant Program. Sponsors Ms. Gail Fowler.
Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to bring for your consideration this evening this resolution. The TML Risk Management Pool offers an Driver's Grant Loss Control Matching Grant Program. This year we are submitting for 6 safety scope color backup camera kits and the installation and labor for them to be mounted on 6 sanitation vehicles. We believe, as the resolution states, the safety and well-being of the employees and citizens of the city is of the greatest importance. And we do try to make all efforts to provide a safe and hazard-free workplace for the City of Cookeville employees, and in this case, our citizens as well. I do believe, Greg and I talked about this evening, this would get 10 of the sanitation trucks equipped. So that just leaves 2 or 3 that are very rarely used in the case of equipment malfunction or breakdown. So it's a 50% matching funds for the purchase of the driver training or safety equipment, and the camera would be the safety equipment. The total price is $5,100, price after the matching funds, and what I'm asking you to authorize this evening is $2,550. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions, but would respectfully request your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
What do we have with trucks now?
Well, new trucks, new purchases are automatically equipped with this camera device. These are going to be retrofits, so we think it'll be a good added piece of safety equipment.
They go beep, beep. They go beep, beep, beep when they back
They
up?
go beep, 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 and you
That's
can
safe.
see now as well.
The scene's the main thing.
Anything else? Seeing none, all vote.
5 yes votes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Item 7, consider authorizing Waller, Lansden, Dortch, and Davis as bond counsel for the $4.3 million general obligation bond, Series 2013. Sponsors Mr. Mike Davidson.
Mayor and council members, we are looking at a potential bond issue, and related to that, we would have to seek bond counsel to help us with that debt issue. And the past bond issue, the last two bond issues we've had, we've used the firm of Waller, Lansden, Dorch, and Davis. I'd recommend, again, using this same firm. Alex Buchanan with this firm would help us with this debt issue. He'll provide all the legal opinions related to this and help us prepare any of the necessary documents related to the bond issue. The fee for this would be $15,000 to Waller, Lansden, Dorch, and Davis, and the fee would be paid from the bond proceeds. But I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right. Item 8, still relating to the bond. Consider authorizing Stevens Incorporated as financial advisor and bond fiscal agent for the 4.3 general obligation bond. Sponsors Mr. Mike Davidson.
Again, related to this debt issue, we would need assistance from a financial advisor. This keeps us in line with our debt service and our debt management policy that we have. We would seek to utilize Stevens Incorporated. We've used and worked with Stevens on the last two bond issues we've had, and in particular, the gentleman that helps us is Larry Brown. He has worked with the city for 20 years, 20-plus years on bond issues, and he will. Stevens will do a number of things in coordinating the sale of these bonds for us. The total fee that would be paid to Stevens for preparing all the documents related to the sale and the notice of sale and the official statements, everything wrapped up in one, is $26,500 in total to them. I would like to point out, and in your packets, in the letter that came from, in the engagement letter with Stevens, Larry does point out that these bonds will be rated by Moody's. And so we'll have a rating on that, and there's a fee associated to that would go to Moody's directly, not to Stevens, but he just wanted to point out to us that there's also a $10,000 fee that will be paid to Moody's to rate these bonds. But again, the fee just to Stevens itself is $26,500 in total, and I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Davis, I mean, I think you mentioned this at the work session, but just for clarity, I mean, even though we don't know what that rating's going to be, they are forecasting the rating will be.
They're forecasting it at AA3, which is AA3, which is exactly where the last two bond issues the city's had, is where those ratings came in, which is a very good rating.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Do you care just to briefly explain the importance of going through the rating system?
It essentially lets the potential investors know about the city of Cookeville and that the credit worthiness of the city of Cookeville, and that ultimately we're going to pay our debts to those investors.
And this enables us to get a very aggressive rate.
And it helps with the rate.
Right.
Most certainly helps
Saves
with
us
that
money
rate.
in
It
the long
saves the
run.
money in the long run. It does help with that tremendously.
Anything else? Seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, item 9, consider Resolution 13-1009, initial resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $4.3 million in general obligation bonds of the city of Cookeville. Mr. Mike Davidson.
Mayor and Council, this resolution does authorize the city to issue not to exceed $4,300,000 in bonds. The proceeds from this debt issue would be used for Public Works facility, to renovate the Public Works facility. That's a $1,300,000 project. To construct the new animal shelter, proceeds for that would be $1,400,000. To reimburse the general fund for $742,000 related to the design work for the Bennett Road North. There's various improvements to be made to the Performing Arts Center. That's a total of $401,500. What I call Phase 3 of Dogwood Park, there's a total budgeted for $287,000. And the bond issuance costs the bond counsel, the financial advisor, and then the other underwriters who purchased the bonds from us. They've estimated that to be $100,000. And then we have contingencies in there, $69,000, just to kind of round it to the $4.3 million in case some of these projects go over, if we have any issues there. But it would be $4.3 million for that. And if I could, I got just a few slides. You'd ask in work session about future bond issues and debt capacity, and I just want to go over that with you. Some projects that we've talked about before I actually ask you to consider this.
You might want to point out that, like on the Public Works facility, A lot of these bond proceeds will be to reimburse the general fund.
They are. 2 years ago in 2011, a resolution was passed because we knew some of these projects were coming. We passed a resolution, council did, that would reimburse the general fund for anything that we paid in advance of issuing this debt. Public Works Facility is one of those projects we've already started. We've spent money with the contractor, paid the contractor for some of the work to date. Proceeds from that $1.3 million is going to go back to the general fund to reimburse the general fund that cash. The same thing with the Bennett Road North. That was to be reimbursed, and we paid money for the expenses so far for the design of that. The actual fly system you see, that's part of the Performing Arts Center. You've already approved that. That work's been done, and that'll reimburse the general fund that $100,000 for that as well. And I believe that's all that's been expensed so far to date. That'll be reimbursed from these bonds back to the general fund. But we did talk briefly Monday. You'd ask about debt capacity, so just if I could go over that real quick with you. Potential $4.3 million if you approve this resolution tonight for this fiscal year. Considering in 2015 other projects, we've got Bennett Road North being designed right now. If we're going to construct that road at some point, we're going to have to look at acquiring right-of-way for that project. So we have that planned in a bond issue for fiscal year 2015. And we also have, we know there's a bridge, the Falling Water River Bridge, that at some point we need to look at that. And we've been talking about that a little bit, so we know there's an estimated cost out there. But those two projects for acquisition, right-of-way acquisition and the bridge replacement, right now we have that budgeted $2,950,000. That could be a bond issue in fiscal year 2015. Looking another year out, we've talked about possibly City Hall Police Station, constructing a new police station somewhere. So we have that, looking at that maybe in fiscal year 2016, along with construction, actual construction of Bennett Road North. And that would be funded through debt, a debt issue in fiscal year 2016. And then if you just kind of wonder, well, does that leave us any debt capacity beyond that? If we borrow the $4.3 million tonight, we do the $2,950,000 in fiscal year 15, $10,500,000 in 2016, we still have future debt capacity of $8 million based on the current revenue that goes into the debt service fund. And just to kind of show you some slides, and I think they're in your packets, this is the current existing debt for the city of Cookeville right now, prior to any new debt that might be approved tonight. So that's what's on the books right now. We owe a little over $15 million in general obligation debt. And then if we approve the $4.3 million bond issue tonight, this is kind of what the debt capacity, or the debt balance, outstanding general obligation debt would be after the $4.3 million. We pay off over $2 million in debt this fiscal year. We would add back $4.3 million with this bond issue, and that gets us up to a little under $17.5 million in debt. And then if you look out even further to the next bond issue, that $2.9 million, we pay off some more debt the next 2 years. We add that $2.5 million on there. You can see we're still right around $17.5 million in debt capacity out in fiscal year 2016. Or not debt capacity, but debt outstanding. Then you look one more year at possibly borrowing $10.5 million in fiscal year 16. So that means that July 1st of fiscal year 17, we're going to have close to $27.5 million of debt outstanding. Now, the city's had as much as $21 million back in 1999 and 2000, so this isn't outside of what we can fund. And you'll see when I factor it all in and the $8 million that's still in debt capacity that we have, if for some odd reason we just wanted in fiscal year 17 to say we got a project, we need to borrow $8 million. That would be all the debt capacity the city has based on current revenues. And you can see what it would do. It would push us up to $32.5 million in outstanding debt. And the line that's on this graph is our cash reserves. And it shows we got over $6 million in cash reserves right now in the debt service fund. And our cash reserves would fall down to about $1.5 million out into fiscal year 25-26. That $1.5 million is the floor that we've set. We don't want to get our cash reserves below that because we have variable rate debt on the books. We want to make sure we have cash should the rates on those inch up a little bit. Right. But ultimately, based on the projects we've got that we've discussed over the next 2 to 3 years, we still have $8 million in debt capacity based on revenues that are going into that fund right now and the cash reserves that we have. So, getting back to tonight's $4.3 million, I'd recommend that we approve that resolution to fund these ongoing projects.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Do you have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
I did have some. I was going to, Mike, appreciate the presentation. I always, I like a little tutorial like this because, you know, we're reissuing a lot of debt. And for the folks out there that are just watching us, they're thinking we're just, just spending the money left and right. But we're not doing that. We're doing this in a very fiscally responsible way. And one of the things I really appreciate is that having a debt capacity of $8 million left over, even after doing this, that gives us a little hedge. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Mr. Shipley's been doing this a long time. I've been involved in this a long time, too. You know, there's a lot of stuff that just shows up on your door. You don't know it. And it's comforting to me as a city councilman and here helping represent the public that we've got that capacity to help take care of whatever shows up on our door. There's some expensive stuff out there, too. So thank you for that tutorial. I appreciate it.
What's our current debt capacity right now that we still have left before this 4.3?
Before this 4.3, it's essentially the 10.5 to 3, so it's right around $30 million is what it is, roughly.
Good.
That's real good.
Now, we're getting ready to retire a $9 million debt we incurred back in '99.
Back in '99, the city issued $9 million in bonds, and that pays off this fiscal year. In May, we'll make an $866,000 principal payment, and that pays that debt off. And that's the year I was talking about when the city had a little over $20 million, $21 million in total debt outstanding. It was right after those bonds were issued.
So compared at that period of time to today, we're much better off cash-wise than we were back then as far as debt to what we have in reserve and cash.
Yes, we didn't have anything near $6 million in reserves in the debt service fund at that time. No.
Right. And also, when you're in this graph, it's also showing the tax rate staying the same all through this.
Yeah, all these projections for debt capacity are based on the revenue we have now and very, very conservative revenue projections going forward.
Right.
And there's no tax increase in any of those projections.
Yeah, because a lot of people are scared when we talk about spending money. Oh no, you're going to come back and ask for more tax. No, we're not going to do that.
And just so everybody knows, I mean, we do have some variable debt, and we budget for that debt at what rate?
We budget that at 5%.
At 5%, and
At 5,
currently
right
it's
now
going
it's
from
at 1.
At 1%.
Some of it's at 1, some of it's a little less than 1%.
Yeah, so
Yeah, but we budgeted on 5, and that's over the last 5 years. That's what has helped build our cash up because we're budgeting on that. Revenue's coming in for that, but we're only paying 1% or less on that. So that's helped increase our cash reserves.
Yeah, I think we've been very careful about picking what we need and not what we want, and what we can afford.
anything else? Seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Item 10, consider Resolution 13-1010, authorizing the execution, terms, issuance, sale, and payment of not to exceed $4.3 million general obligation bond, City of Cookeville, and providing the details thereof. Sponsors Mr. Mike Davidson.
Mayor and council members, this is a little bit more, it's a detailed resolution about the bond issue. It sets forth all the various provisions of the bond, such as maturity dates and redemption dates. It authorizes the mayor to execute all the documents related to the sale of those bonds, and just various definitions related to the bonds. Everything is in that detailed resolution, but I would recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? I just want to say thank you for budgeting, forecasting, doing exactly what you guys are doing. Mr. Davidson, Mr. Shipley, and the rest of the administration, because I feel like we're in really good financial shape. And I feel like when we step off of this podium, whoever comes next will be in really good financial shape.
I agree.
Right.
I
That's
agree.
not because of what we've decided, that's because of what
No,
you guys have done.
yeah.
Right.
And that should be the goal of every council. And the council before us did a great job. So,
Get that.
Should be the goal of our federal government, too.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
It would be. I wish they all had the ballots. Or
Maybe we should send
The
this
only
tape
government
to
out there in this country
DC.
that can run at a deficit.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you. Before we get off on that.
Yes.
Send a resolution. Can I'd make a resolution to send to the federal government?
Let's just send them a copy of our meeting.
Send them little slides.
Yes.
All right, anything else? All right, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, item 11. Consider awarding bids for service trucks for the Public Works, Gas and Water, and sponsors Mr. Mike Davis.
Mayor, council members, Public Works, Gas, and Water have service vehicles budgeted this year, and so we went together and sent bids out, opened those on the 11th of October, and low bidder on the various vehicles, on all three of the different type vehicles, was Ford of Murfreesboro. One of the vehicles was a 4x2, 8-foot bed, regular cab pickup truck. That bid was $18,998. Public Works is purchasing two of those. Another vehicle is actually a four-wheel drive, 6-foot bed that has a small extended cab in the back for storing materials, supplies, gear. And low bid again was Ford of Murfreesboro. That's $22,818. Water Department is purchasing two of those vehicles, and the Gas Department is purchasing one. And the last vehicle is a 4x4 extended cab with a service body. The service body has the bins and the rack so we can store meters and fittings and equipment. That vehicle is $28,650, and the Water Department's purchasing one. The Gas Department is purchasing one of those as well, but I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? These budgeted items.
Yes, they're budgeted, and they came within budget, too, so.
Very nice.
Win-win.
Yep. I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
I knew the answer to that. I just lobbed you a softball.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 12. Consider awarding bid for resurfacing various city streets using STP funds. Public Works Department sponsors Mr. Greg Brown.
Mayor and council, we opened bids today for repaving of 7 city streets using our STP funds. Highways Incorporated was the low bidder, $2,178,960, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yes, Mr. Brown, would you mind kind of just listing off what those for the
Okay.
paper and the public, what those roads are?
It's a Broad Street from the intersection with Spring Street and Broad on the west triangle to the east triangle, or where it intersects with Spring Street again. South Walnut from Broad Street south to Jackson. West Jackson Street, which is from Willow out to West Broad. Holiday Road, all of it. Fisk Road from 10th Street north to Shagrag. Interstate Drive, and Neal Street.
Flat paved.
When will this start?
Well, TDOT has to concur with the bid. Hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably try to do the overlay paving the streets with curb and gutter. We're going to mill those and pave them. Contractor's a little worried about getting caught with bad weather, so if we mill it and then it gets bad weather, we don't want to leave a milled road all through the winter, so we may wait and do those till spring.
Anything else? All right. Seeing none, I'll vote.
5 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right. This is part of the meeting. We'd like to open up the floor to anyone that's here that would like to come forward and speak. Anybody at all? Anything on your mind? Good, bad, ugly, indifferent? Preferably good? Good. All right. You guys have anything?
Tomorrow is the last Brown Bag concert at the Depot, and I think it starts at 11:30, and those are always really pleasant, and I think the weather's supposed to be good for it. And the Shakespeare in the Park wrapped up this past weekend, and they had great crowds and wonderful weather for that. And it's just a pleasure to see our park being used so much, constantly.
There's a train coming in from Nashville on Saturday, probably be here around noon. So we should have a lot of people. How many people? 600, 500 that come here to Cookeville, eat lunch, shop. So it's a great time to get out and visit if you want to visit with some people.
The Cookeville Senior High School, Cookeville High School girls soccer team right now, here in about another hour, is going to be playing for the district championship. They've been running roughshod over everybody this season. So they play that tonight. It's here tonight. And for those of you that are going to be out driving around on Saturday morning, around about 8 to about 11 o'clock, just be careful. There's going to be about 400 people running around our fair city. About 13.1 miles of that. So, we have the Haunted Half Marathons coming up, which supports WCTE. There'll be a lot of people that have trained a very long time in order to do that. So just be on the watch out and be patient if you're trying to cross the street and you're like going, where are all these people coming from? That's what's going on.
Is our vice mayor going to be one of those?
Oh yeah. I was asked if we do still have late registration. If any of the city council members would like to participate on like a relay team again.
I'll be there in spirit.
I'll be there volunteering.
That's not what you said last time, Al.
I wanted to point out as well, next week is Chemistry Week on TTU's campus. It's probably National Chemistry Week, but they're celebrating it on TTU's campus, and there's several events that are going to be on campus. October 21st, there's a special lecture about green chemistry in Foster Hall. There'll be a bunch of hands-on science demonstrations and activities for school children. Then October 23rd is the periodic table cookie bake sale in front of Foster Hall. And then November the 2nd is the Golden Helix 5K. And that begins at 10 a.m. in front of Prescott Hall at the corner of Stadium Avenue and 10th Street. And you can still sign up. You can go to goldenhelix5k.com. And I know they said that they had the deadline for T-shirts was supposed to be this week, but they will extend it if you sign up until beginning of next week, they said, I think. Packet pickup, late registration for the 5K will be November 1st from 3 to 7, and Saturday morning from 8 to 9:30 on November the 2nd. Also, I wanted to recognize the chemistry department and chemistry club at TTU, because out of 1,200 chapters across the country, we were one of 52 that got the Outstanding Chapter Award from the American Chemical Society. So that speaks
Very
volumes.
cool. Yeah.
Booyah.
Nice.
Volumes of the TTU education.
Raise the roof.
Anything else?
How many chemistry majors are out there?
Well,
Come on, guys.
are you the only one who raised your hand?
I like it.
I
dig
did
it.
pass chemistry.
All right. This meeting's adjourned.